even though it had expired, is an indication of the atrocious way in which our INS operates.
4 months before the September attacks, Atta's hire car was clocking up the miles. The 3 pilots had moved to the east coast of Florida and rented a series of anonymous apartments close to each other. And then a dozen more Arabs began arriving in 1s and 2s. They came from Saudi Arabia via Dubai and the Gulf. These men were hand-picked followers of bin Laden, trained in his camps. They were to be the foot soldiers in the attacks, the muscle that would actually terrorize the passengers. None of the new arrivals attracted the attention of officialdom. They had the necessary visas, and they'd been chosen because they had no record of terrorist connections. They blended unobtrusively into the ethnic mix of South Florida. The hijackers passed their time in local gyms, getting fit for their coming mission. When one of the pilots, Ziad Jarrah, applied for a membership, he said he would only need it until September. He told the gym's owner, Bert Rodriguez, he wanted lessons in martial arts.
But one of the great ways, come straight ahead with a straight knife. Yes.
It raised no suspicion that a businessman, as Jarrah described himself, wanted to learn self-defense and attack using knives.
This one is...
Once again, Jarrah proved the perfect deceiver.
He gave me an appearance of, of being a serious, well-educated, which he was, committed, which he was, dedicated, which he was person.
Jarrah told Bert Rodriguez he was teaching his newfound skills to his friends. He would return with questions they'd asked about martial arts techniques.
He tried to, again, put on an appearance of timidness, but at the same time, I could also see that he had discipline. When I got him up there, he was showing his true self. He was showing his competitive side.
Atta was the link man between all the hijackers living in different locations in Florida. That summer, he moved unnoticed amongst American holidaymakers. His tradecraft was meticulous, and he was thrifty. He distributed small amounts of cash using money orders hard to trace.
23, 24, and 25.
He picked a little-known car rental company.
I think Muhammad Atta came here for price. I mean, he rented the cheapest car he could from us. He didn't rent the best car we had. He rented the cheapest car we had. A lot of criminals do come here simply because, we're a little guy out of the way and a lot less conspicuous than going to a big place.
The terrorists opened postbox accounts to receive mail anonymously. They deliberately conducted communications in busy public places, using a chain store for email. No one traced their presence on the web. They may have encrypted their messages. The operation was low-tech, virtually undetectable for a nation geared up for a very different intelligence war.
We're very good at listening on satellites or taking pictures from the sky of the former Soviet Union. Where we have fallen down is the agility to deal with these much smaller, more flexible, and more violent terrorist groups that are now our enemy.
Just weeks before the September attacks, there were threats from bin Laden. He promised a body blow against America.
We always had a big problem with the West, convincing them how dangerous these people could be.
But you warned them.
We did. And they did have a feeling that something was coming, but they didn't know where or when or how.
Despite his careful planning, Atta came near to discovery in his final weeks in Florida. He had no local driving license, and one night the police pulled him over. It was an offence, and Atta was booked and given a court date. He failed to turn up, but no one came looking for him. Atta learnt his lesson.
I need you to sign this citation.
Within a fortnight, 6 of the hijackers had obtained local driving licenses. Atta moved on to meet the last 4 hijackers to join the group. They'd merged seamlessly into the Arab neighborhood of Paterson in New Jersey to await their orders for September the 11th. But one of the men, a Saudi, should have been noticed. That January, the CIA had learned of Khalid al-Midar's involvement in the terror plot to bomb the USS Cole. He had links to bin Laden, but his name wasn't put on an immigration watch list until the end of August, 7 months later. Agents would still be searching for him when the planes hit their targets.
There seems to have been a breakdown of any kind of control that might have prevented this particular individual from coming here.
Yeah, you're right. They should have been picked up when they entered the United States, failed to do so. It also was a breakdown in the handoff of information from the intelligence services to the domestic law enforcement agencies. Several of these people had been tracked by intelligence until they got inside the United States, and then they were lost in our own country.
Perhaps the greatest missed opportunity to foil the plot came just a month before the attacks, when a French-Moroccan student was jailed in Minnesota. Zacharias Moussaoui was taking flight lessons financed by the Hamburg cell. He'd aroused the suspicion of an instructor. But Moussaoui wouldn't answer any questions, and investigators didn't realize how significant he might be until after September the 11th. Moussaoui now faces 6 counts of conspiracy to commit acts of terror. The months before the attack, 19 hijackers were in place. One of them was still undergoing intensive last-minute training in order to pilot the 4th plane. The targets in New York and Washington had been fixed. The terrorists even made test runs on some of the flights they would take. Atta tried to check in-flight security. He asked to look round the cockpit. The request was refused. But the hijackers discovered that Tuesday was the quietest flying day. More chance the flights would keep to schedule, fewer passengers to fight back. The terrorists then booked seats in business class, which would give them the best chance of seizing the controls. Two days before the attacks, at Boston Airport, Atta was watching planes prepare for departure. Again, it was a woman, a passenger, who noticed his suspicious behavior.
He walked very aggressively with his head held very high, looking around. When I was actually boarding the airplane, he was standing at the gate counter, writing in a card. Really, the only thing he could see of the airplane was the pilots and the front of the airplane. And I thought to myself, this is very strange. And I was actually afraid. I actually watched everyone get on the plane because I'd made a promise to myself that if he got on the plane, I would go see the captain because his behavior had been so bizarre.